Good morning, folks. Buenos dias, mi familia. So, listen, I'm your boy and your co-host Kevo, and today we have an amazing guest on our One Moment podcast, and this is his second time or third time coming on, and last time he was on, it was probably about a year ago, and we spoke about a lot of stuff. I mean, we spoke a lot about a fentanyl and his experiences as a DEA agent, and a lot of good feedback off of that show. We received, and we were able to give the public a lot of education, a lot of knowledge on the current state of the substance use field, especially as it relates to fentanyl use. And so he is a co-founder of I think it's only 2MG, and he does a lot of trainings across the country, trying to educate people on that. And it's not just law enforcement that he trains anybody who, is seeking knowledge about fentanyl. And so I'm glad to have him back. He's an amazing young man, and I love what he's got to share, and I love his experiences, and I nothing but love and respect. And let me say this: uh, years ago, when I used to talk to people like him, they will be carrying me off in stainless steel bracelets. Today is a complete different ball game, and I appreciate that.
I
So
think
with
that's
that,
oh, but
go ahead. No, go ahead.
no, I thank you for that. I appreciate that, and happy to be back. And isn't that amazing? I mean, how we share a common goal, and yeah, life changes, but uh, things are going well, so that's a good thing.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And I love that. I love the fact that we can come together, and the common goal is to educate people, is to help save lives, is to help change lives. And so, since we've gotten, through to like, some of the history as far as you being on here, anything you want to share as far as, to start us off with for people who maybe didn't watch that show, anything that people want that you feel like people should know before we
Hmm.
jump into more new stuff.
I'll give you a quick synopsis for anyone who didn't watch the last one. I spent about 30 years in law enforcement. I was a police officer, and then I was a special agent for the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, where I retired after 23 years. I retired in Springfield, Missouri, where I was in charge of the office there, and in the 25 or so counties in Southwest Missouri that we were, under our area of responsibility. After that, I put on a couple different hats to include only 2MG, and our nonprofit organization is dedicated to raising awareness of not only illicit fentanyl but other public safety threats, and had the opportunity, the honor, really, to talk to people all across this country. A lot of young people, first responders, just really, like you said, anyone who will listen and educate people about not only illicit fentanyl but the other threats that are unfortunately endangering our communities and devastating families throughout this beautiful country, and continue to do that. It's been an interesting year. We still trained a lot, but we didn't train as much as we did the previous year, and that's not a it's not a bad thing. I mean, we like to get out there, don't be wrong, but we did a lot more podcasts, a lot more media, a lot more public outreach like this. Um, as we kind of pivot and look at our vision, money is a big issue because most of what we do is free to our attendees. Never wanted money to be an issue. An organization wants to bring us in. We didn't want to, make it about money. We wanted to make it about education, learning, prevention, and but money is important, not from the attendee standpoint, but from just you got to pay for hotel rooms and gas and airfare and things like that. So we pivoted to do more public stuff like this to keep our brand out there, keep awareness more importantly out there, and think about how we're going to raise the funding we need and continue our mission. We're looking at grant funding still. Just hired a new company, excited about that, and hopefully we can find some opioid settlement money to keep us going, because the work's too important. So
Wow. No, you're absolutely right. The work is way too important. Um, let me ask you this, because anytime we have a nonprofit on, I always like to ask a specific question to a lot of the nonprofit folks. But to keep you going, to keep doing this thing, what is the most, I guess, a couple of your critical needs that you and the organization need so that y'all can continue to do what y'all do? Because you're one of the only few nonprofits I've met and I've heard of that specifically do what you do.
yeah, no, it's unfortunately it's money. It's not about any. I don't pay myself a salary. I don't nothing like that at all. In fact, it's private donations, and I'm one of the big donators, because I truly believe in what I do. And but unfortunately, I don't have a tree out behind my house that I can shake the branches and money falls out. Right? I mean, it only goes so far. So that's our biggest obstacle. I mean, we have people. I mean, I'm the primary instructor. We've had one other instructor who's great, and he's been able to do some things local to his area. But I have a number of people that are willing to get out and travel and get in front of audiences, and we can really scale and increase our impact. Just can't afford to, and like I said, there are some organizations out there who call schools, things like that, who will pay, and it's not a lot of money, and it's we take that money and we use that for organizations that can't pay. But again, it only goes so far, right? I mean, we try to combine, if I'm in I travel a lot, just to, regardless of this obstacle, we like I said, we make things happen. So we try to combine our efforts. If I'm somewhere, I'll try to do multiple trainings or presentations, as opposed to, I don't want to spend a lot of money and go somewhere and talk for a couple hours and leave. I want to get the most bang for my buck. I need to be efficient with the money that we do have, and make good decisions and just be fiscally responsible. But yeah, that's the biggest obstacle. I mean, I got volunteers, I got interns from a local university. I mean, we're talking to students, we're gathering data, gathering information. It's just, and everyone's doing it on their, because they believe in what we do. But to actually get out in front of people, it unfortunately takes money, and that's, I hate to make it all about money, but it's also frustrating because there's so many people out there who are willing to donate to this and that, and that's great. It's kind, but when it comes to drugs, when it comes to substance use disorder, it is tough. It really is. We have internally joked that we will have some type of animal option in our. What I mean by that is, let's say someone's struggling from substance use disorder, and they unfortunately overdose and pass away and die, and they have a pet, who comes in and takes care of their dog or their cat, who rehomes it, things like that. And we half jokingly said, let's take that on as well, because if we add that piece to our nonprofit, money will just absolutely flood in. But when it comes to the people don't care, and it's just, it's aggravating. It breaks my heart that it goes to the stigma of what we're dealing with. People just discount these people. They think it's some type of failing, some type of, they made their bed, let them sleep in it. I hear that stuff all the time. And I used to hold my tongue, but now I got to call these people out. They're, it's just not right. It's not decent. It's not human.
Hmm. Wow. That is, and that is so sad because, money is a barrier. But then again, when you look at it, and there's no but here, let me reframe on that. And when we add also the factor in that there's a significant number of people that have that moral or take that moral theory of substance use, right? They're just no good, or I mean, they're never going to get it, kind of. And instead of taking that kind of like umbrella approach and saying, hey, how can we help you? What is the issue? what is the root cause, you right, instead of taking that type of approach, it's that other approach that you're talking about, that very stigmatizing, dehumanizing approach.
Yeah.
And I can see how that'll be a barrier, even in my own you know positions, and I'm gonna say plural here. I've dealt with the same thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's the healthcare society or whether it's family, or people in society in general. That's that is the family of, and there's a lot of it goes back to this idea that they're a failure, they're a weakness, they're a cancer to society, things like that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense, and it's aggravating. And I know you're aggravated. I'm aggravated. And every time we win over a heart, that's a good thing, and it doesn't mean they have to open their checkbooks or start a nonprofit or volunteer. It just means that they can be human and just be decent people. And we need to be more proactive in our approach as opposed to reactive. And I think that in a lot of things in life, but certainly this. And I think if we were to be more proactive, the stigma would reduce, and just caring for people. I mean, I've said this before. I mean, if you had a neighbor that had let's say that had cancer or something like that. I mean, you'd be bringing food to them. My thoughts and prayers are with you, and there's nothing wrong with all those things. But the same neighbor said, "Hey, I'm struggling with substance use. I've developed an addiction, as people refer to it. What do? We avoid them, right? We basically turn the other way, and it's like, I mean, come on, people. I mean, just you may not have all the answers, but at least be there for them, right? I mean, why would that's not neighborly. It's just not a decent thing to do. I mean, if you don't know how to respond, just say, "Hey, I'm here for
Mhm.
you. I don't. This is new to me. I don't know how to. This. It's hard for me to process this, but hey, I'm your friend, and if I can help in any way, I mean, I can drive you somewhere. If I can make a phone call, whatever. I'm not going to abandon you, and that's what we see too much. And then, as you know as well, as when you dive deep into this, how many folks out there who are really struggling with substance use and trauma and all these other issues don't seek help because of this. They stay hidden in the shadows because of it, because they don't want to be shunned, stigmatized, embarrassed, humiliated. So they just avoid seeking help. And what does that do, right? That further compounds the problem. Might lead to their death or some type of harm, or maybe harm to others. I mean, it's just, I don't know. The answer is simple to me. You just eliminate stigma, give a shit, and things will get better.
Oh, wow. No, I 100% agree. And it's interesting that you brought that up because, I do my best, anyways, to teach families and patients. One of the most important aspects of recovery, whether it's substance use or mental health, is connection.
Yeah.
And there's two aspects of this. One is being connected with others. And then the other most important is being connected with myself, because we're already dehumanizing ourselves, right? And through no fault of our own, when we're using drugs and all of that, like we're really dehumanizing ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. And and I love what Elisa Gracheva, I hope I pronounced her name right. She's a good friend of mine. She's Russian, and she's a licensed mental health and substance use therapist. But love what she said. The most important relationship that we'll ever have is the one with myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to be the last relationship I ever have in this lifetime. And so now there's no better time than now to get reconnected with myself, right? And substance use takes that away. Active drug use takes that away, right? And it kills us internally, emotionally, physiologically, mentally, spiritually, kills us relationally. It kills us in almost every area.
I had a friend of mine. His name is Mike, and he's in long term recovery from heroin. he says it's the most jealous thing. He goes, you can't have anything. You can't have, whether it's, jobs, relationships, family, thoughts,
Mm.
goals, dreams. He goes, it's the most jealous thing. It just takes control, and doesn't want you to have anything except for it, and I think that's hard for a lot of people who haven't, I don't come from a background of substance use. I come from the enforcement part of it, so it's,
Yeah.
which I think is refreshing for some people to realize that a lot of people like me believe the things I'm saying. Um, but also, I think I took it upon myself to try to understand. I may not agree with some of the choices and things like that, but to try to understand where the person has come from, and develop that empathy, and I have found personally that it makes me more effective in communication with people, because I'm not coming from a judgmental standpoint. I'm not coming from a "you suck" standpoint. I'm coming from a, "Hey, how can I help you?" standpoint, right? And
Mm.
and how can we improve things? And I think if more people would take that approach, and not just for substance use, but just in life in general, just more empathy, right? And but another thing, if you don't mind, you mentioned the relationships, and I absolutely agree. The relationship with yourself. I do that when I do leadership training as well with another my for-profit business, and always one of my pillars is you always have to look in the mirror, and I don't mean literally, I mean figuratively, and figure out how do you improve yourself, because if you're going to take a position of authority in an organization, how dare you, you know try to empower and make other people better if you're not willing to do that for yourself, right? You got to care for yourself, but then the relationship with others, and that always strikes a nerve in a good way when you said that, because I'm thinking about, that's one thing that I'm seeing. I'm sure we're all seeing less and less of, because of cell phones, because of social media. We're not having this human connection anymore, and it's sad. And we're seeing the devastating impact, right? I mean, you disagree with someone online, and you can call them anything you want, right? Label them, and threaten them, and we don't you don't do that in person, right? It's a whole different conversation when you're in front of someone. But
Mm.
we have people growing up like this, so they don't know how to deal with confrontation. They don't know how to deal with differences, and then that further isolates some people into coping with drugs, or coping with alcohol, or coping with some type of dangerous behavior. And anyway, I can go on and on and on. It's just it's aggravating sometimes, right?
Mm. No, you're right. Yeah, and it's interesting because I was just talking, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was talking to a guy. Yeah, I think it was over about 2 days. I think it was Sunday and Monday, or Saturday and Sunday. It was over social media, and we were talking about different things in substance use, and he was sharing his experience with certain part of the field, medication assisted treatment, in fact.
Yeah.
And he was, sharing a lot of positive stuff for it, and he was educating people on it. And I had commented, and I said, I said, it's interesting. I said, I agree with MAT. I said, but there's a lot of it that I also disagree with. And I just named off some stuff. And then he came back and he was like, well, Kev, is highly regulated, this, that, and the third, so on and so forth. Like, I mean, he was, taking up for it, right? And,
Yeah.
and I took up for it too. I responded, I'm like, listen, I'm not in disagreement with you 100%. I'm not. I agree with you. I agree with what, the goals. However, this has been my experience when I worked in,
Yeah.
that field. And then he responded back, and then so he and I was going back and forth, a few times like that. And at the end of the day, we still both agreed on the objectives, the goals, and the overall picture, even though we disagreed
Yeah.
over certain other areas that weren't really that important. It was like tomatoes, tomatoes,
Yeah.
right? But that's really what it is, right? And that's what substance use, you know, is, and that's how it can be. Is
Yeah.
you might not agree, um, with everything, But at least if I can come in with just a little bit of understanding, or at least trying to understand, a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy, the chances of you coming to me, Brian, when you need help is pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, it's significantly high, right? Versus if I go to you and say, Brian, you know what? You're just a piece of crap, man. Man, you are just absolutely useless. You're a drug addict. You'll never be a decent person. You'll always be a dope addict. You're absolutely just completely useless.
Junkie, all the different derogatory terms, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. And think of that. What if you or him said, I don't know, like you probably kill puppies at night, like you know what I mean? Like just
No.
instead of actually having a back and forth and trying to understand, where you both are coming from, and which is difficult online too because sometimes the context in text is much different than verbal communication. But yeah, you ultimately were moving towards the same goal line, right? You just guys had some different turns to get there, and yeah, you're right. I mean, it's having civil discussion is healthy, but we jump to, I mean, I don't want to talk politics, but I mean, look at politics. I mean, it's immediately a label. There's immediate shutdown. There's no back and forth, and when they start throwing out when it comes to substance abuse, and they start throwing out addict and all these words and stuff, it's just, yeah, you're not showing, like you said, the compassion, the empathy, and then the communication usually gets more, not goes from civil to more, you know, uh,
Yeah.
aggressive. You know?
Right, right. No, absolutely. And it's sad. It is totally, totally sad and devastating. I mean, I've worked with so many folks over the years, and I mean, just the labeling, right? Like I always tell people, right? Because if you go back to the relationship with ourselves, right? I always tell people, like, you know, first in this group, I am a human being just like you folks. That's why I say don't call me sir, right? Like, and it's just as simple as that, right? I let my folks know, don't call me sir. You can call me Kevin, Kev, Kevo. You can call me a hole. You can call me the worst therapist ever. I don't care. But on a human to human level, it's just me, right? I'm not a therapist first. I'm not an employee of this business first. You and I need to be able to connect on that human to human level, right? And then we can throw on other labels as,
Yeah.
oh, you're a patient, or oh, you're a, you know, African American female patient, or Caucasian male patient, or you're this type of patient, you're a person with this diagnosis, you're a person with this diagnosis, you're a person who struggles, uh, right? Like we can throw on all of those extra
Yeah.
labels. Maybe you're a person with who struggles with homelessness, right? But we're not our label.
Yeah.
We are more than what our label is, or what that label is.
Yeah, the label's not shutting down communication. It's just a label at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's the, as opposed to you're a blank and I no longer want to talk to you. That's
Mhm.
that's the opposite, and unfortunately, we see way too much of that.
No, right. And it's sad. It is sad because people like you and I are constantly always trying to, change the perspective. I was talking to somebody one day. They were like, "Hey, I asked this individual why they didn't do this and why they are changing their mind and why they said this and now they won't let me, the whole thing has changed now." And literally, and this is, so when you say that you're frustrated over certain things, I can identify, because that is one of the most frustrating things to me is when you try to educate somebody and there's this huge complete wall of resistance, like, and it's like, hey, I'm not getting on to you. But like, if you think about the reason I never ask a individual why, I'm like, it's a shutdown factor, right? It's an authoritative question. It's like all of these things. I want the individual to open up to me. right? And that, that person got irritated with me because I'm like, that was your, first mess up is you went to him and said, why this, why that, why this, why that, right? And I'm like, if you want the individual to, I don't want to use the word comply, but I'm gonna use it. It kind of fits. But
I
if you want
understand.
the individual to comply, right, and not shut down, don't ask why. And I was, they asked me a question. I gave them the feedback, and there was a complete wall of resistance. This veil, if I'm pronouncing it right, this veil of resistance that just kind of like came over this person, and they were like, "No, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do." Okay, well, you keep doing the same thing and get the same results.
And that may also be a response mechanism where they're used to that, so they want to put that barrier up, right? And they have to figure out how to remove that barrier and through the relationship, through the communication. But it's
Right,
frustrating, right? I
right. No, it is. It is. It is, and it's sad, man. It's sad because we're in the business of trying to help people, and in the process, you might see something that I need to do differently on my end. And as somebody who's working toward the same goal,
yeah,
right, and similar goals, right, your job is to educate me. My job is to learn, right, and be open minded enough to know or to even say to myself, "Hey, Brian might be right. Let me try it like this first, right?" Instead of my way, because we're all in this thing together. We're all trying to educate on 2 milligram fentanyls. We're trying to educate on substance use as a whole, and to help reduce substance use disorders, to help save lives, to help save families. Um, the least I can do is have an open mind and learn.
yeah, I agree. And think of the devastating impact all this has. I mean, look at the resources, the money, and I mean, we barely put anything on it. I know there's people, we're like, oh, that's not true. We spend millions of dollars here and there. No, it's pennies compared to the overall budgets. It really is. I mean, you can throw out a big number, but put it in context.
Yeah.
We spend more money on sending it to Ukraine or something like that. I'm not political. I don't need people to go, oh, that's a good thing to do. I'm not saying it's bad or good. My point is that we have a problem here that we're putting pennies to. And I think when you really dive into the why is there a lack of resources? Why is there a lack of beds, counseling, recovery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I think it goes to the greater lack of empathy and the stigma and the fact that just to what you and I were doing, we're not having these conversations and learning from each other and trying to find common ground to get to the finish line, to a shared common goal, right? I hate to use the word frustrating, but that's what it is. It's just frustrating because we all know it. I mean, we talk about it all the time, and we all know it. We're doing our part to chip away at it, right?
Right. Right. No, and you're right. And I have to say that is a one of my biggest barriers. Is that it's not so much the funding on my end, just because like I don't work in nonprofit, so I can understand that part too. Mine is the resistance of people when you're giving education, when you're trying to help. I've dealt with that numerous times. And I know fentanyl's a big one, right? And I definitely want to talk about that. But like, and like when I say that it's this lack of communication between people, I agree with you on that one. Um, for the last couple of years, this huge over the counter THC stuff that we've been seeing, experiencing nationwide, it's just like these legal fentanyl pills, legal benzos, legal magic mushrooms. Like all of this stuff is a problem. And when I go to educate people on what this stuff is being sold over the counter, especially this THC stuff that's sold OTC, the same thing. Wall of resistance comes up. Oh yeah, no, it's just THC.
Yeah, it's not a hard drug.
Right, right, and it goes into the education. Well, can you? And so I literally will ask people, can you tell me how much Delta 8 or how prevalent is Delta 8 in the cannabis plant? If you think about a cannabis plant being 6 to 8 feet tall, how much of that plant is actually Delta 8, right? And so like it's this communication thing that when I start educating people who directly experience the issues with it, they become open-minded because they're sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
While other people who who I talk to about it, whether it's social media or what have you, that's not, anybody who's not a patient is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's just like wall of resistance, like, no, man, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not that, it's THC.
I
Okay,
can almost
listen.
guarantee. Oh no, please go ahead.
Go go ahead, go
No, I
ahead.
can almost guarantee what some of the comments are.
Right,
Alcohol, coffee, caffeine. Like they'll throw out other, other arguments sometimes, right?
right.
Oh,
Right,
every time. Yeah.
right, right. Oh, wow. So let me ask you this, right? Because if I'm seeing this on my end too, as far as not just the fentanyl, right? Because fentanyl is a huge problem. This over the counter THC stuff. You also have legal benzos, legal opiates such as legal fentanyl, and I'm saying legal because they're not opiates, so to speak. The
Yeah.
molecule isn't opiate, but you go to these stores, these gas stations, you buy, and they're called. I think the DEA calls them legal benzos, like for short, legal opiates, legal heroin, legal certain things for short. They've got way different analogs, but they act similarly within the body when we take them. What has been your experience in the last year or two since we've been in this fentanyl epidemic for a few years? What has been your experience with, since you've been doing this only 2 mg?
It's interesting. I was actually just speaking at a conference in Ohio a couple weeks ago about this. We have seen a shift to a lot lower purity levels of fentanyl. Still a huge problem. Still, people dying. To a lot more of these other synthetic opioids. The nitazines, the benzos, the isos, and then the veterinarian drugs like xylazine. I mean, I can't even pronounce all of them anymore. We're seeing our drug supply shift. Fentanyl is still, what changed everything, right? I mean, casual drug use, experimental drug use, first time drug use, that's all changed because of fentanyl. Um, the landscape, as I always say, has changed, but now we're seeing a lot lower purity. So we're seeing it cut in more synthetics and more. We're seeing it still in methamphetamine, still in cocaine. But now we have all this new class. I say new. I mean, a lot of these drugs have been out for a long time, but really not on the street. In the prevalence that it is now, we're seeing a lot more of these things, often cut with fentanyl and other, poisons or fillers. And then we've seen it all increase, and some of it is legal. Some, like you said, you go, and the THC. Oh gosh, don't even get me started on that. I mean, as you know, the THC levels in the marijuana is just spikes so high, and
Mm.
it's not. Every time I talk about this, every single time I get a parent. Well, I smoked weed when I was in high school, and I don't know. I think it's hypocritical that we tell our kids not to smoke it. And I'm like, all right, when did you graduate high school? And I go down this route. And I'm like, so, the average, THC levels was, I don't know, 3% when you graduate high school. Do you know what it is now? Oh, no. Well, it's about 40, 45%, or, now it's actually even higher, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, well, what does that mean? I was like, well, the anxiety, the depression, the psychosis, schizophrenia. I mean, you name it. I mean, we are literally seeing an increase in everything. And to your point, if you put that online, I see it all the time on LinkedIn. It's always, well, alcohol is much worse, and caffeine, and well, you're going to ban chocolate now. Like, they come up with all these weird arguments instead of addressing the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that the marijuana industry it's like the big pharma. It's a big business, and they know that because they've increased the THC levels, that tolerance and dependence has grown, and there are people that smoke marijuana every single day. That's their typical customer now. Their average marijuana customer smokes marijuana 25 times a month. So if that's your
Wow.
average customer, what do you have to do? You have to build a product that is strong enough for them to enjoy it, right? Because
Mm.
they've built that tolerance to it. Um, and they've taken over, and it's wrecking havoc, especially in our young people. And it's not a hard drug, it's just weed, And I mean, that's frustrating too. But yeah, we've absolutely seen the number of synthetics grow, and the seizures by law enforcement particularly have grown. Um, at the same time, the purity level, like I said, of fentanyl has fallen. Still dangerous drug. We're not
Yeah.
minimizing that at all. But it's really shifted our drug supply.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I didn't know that it was on that broad scale of a level there. I mean, like I knew it was prevalent, but to the extent that you just said, like that is disheartening.
Yeah,
Because it's and I, another reason why it's so disheartening for me is it's not the fact that it's 70-year-old people, right, or 60-year-old people, or even 45-year-old people. I mean, there's some of those folks out there, right?
yeah,
But most of the generation in the age group that I see, and I have to give education on, is the people below 30.
yeah,
People below 30, and I mean, I am literally having conversations now. It seems like it used to be 1 to 3 times a week. Now it's almost 3 to 5 times a week, and that's been within a year. Within the last year, that's how much it has increased. Was I mean, just that. I mean, it's doubled, and for me, man, like you have the fentanyl, but then it's cut with stuff that your typical drug screen doesn't test for.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, xylazine is a veterinarian drug. But most drug screens don't test for xylazine. You have to do a specific test for xylazine. You have
yeah.
to do a specific test for all of these other analogs that you were just saying that are synthetics, because they're not opiates, right? They're not.
Yeah, and the labs, I mean, depending on how they do their tests too, right? They have to. Sometimes they don't screen for those things as well, and then as these things become more prevalent in our drug supply, some of the folks that can afford it, they have the budgets to change their testing or their process or their equipment. Then what happens? What do we see? 5 new drugs on the market, right? And that's the problem. Is the synthetics have I've said this jokingly, and I think it's no longer a joke. I think there are contests on the dark web to see who can make the most destructive synthetics out there and just introduce it to our drug supply. I mean, it's incredible. Like I said, it's hard for me to even keep up, and that's my job is to keep up with these things, right? And um, yeah,
Wow. No, and I don't think you're far off there. I got a one of my clinical supervisors. My second clinical supervisor or third. Yeah, my third one. He did a video. He does a lot of training, a lot of supervision, a lot of education, and a lot of I mean, just a lot of stuff in the field. And he's got his own YouTube channel, and he said that he truly believes we are guinea pigs for a lot of the stuff, including this high THC content. Because I've read research on this stuff that you're talking about. Some of it is 150 plus percent THC content, right? Like, and it's sad. It's sad that we're in this age because back in my day, right? And I'm only 36. So you're talking about late 90s, early 2000s growing up. You're talking about THC levels that was, could range from 1 to 9%, 8%,
yeah, I was
7%,
going to
things
say
like
about 5%. Yeah, on average.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, even in the 60s, you're still talking about average was 1 to 2, 1 to 3%.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking about just a small, you know, increase. You're also talking about, we didn't have all the synthetics that we do now.
yeah,
Now you have it's more than just bath salt. It's more than just K2 spice. Um, you couldn't go to every store or every tobacco store and
yeah,
buy whatever's out there on the streets, right? You know, a lot of people are buying stuff, and this is again for the public. I want to hear your experience on this too. A lot of people will go to these. stores buy whatever's in these stores, they'll turn around and they'll repackage it or resell it on the streets, and they'll make significantly more money because it's the good or the good stuff, right? And they throw some of these fancy names on it. And that is a huge problem that I have seen increase significantly since you've been on the show, right? And that's with fentanyl, and I mean just across the board.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, not only are they selling on the street, we've seen in a lot of these stores too. They're also, they're buying these products, some of them illegal products, or some that they just package themselves, like you said, and it's comes down to greed. I mean, they're just drug traffickers, is what they are. I mean, they may have they may have a store and a business license, but that doesn't mean they're not drug traffickers. They're just preying on people, and they call it a choice, and they say it's harmless. But you tell it to the individuals that have died because of this stuff. You tell it to the families who have been devastated because of this stuff. You tell it to the communities that have just been turned upside down because of this stuff. I mean, you make a choice to sell this stuff, and I have nothing for. I mean, I'll treat you with respect if I'm dealing with you in an enforcement perspective, but I think you're scum.
No, no. I mean, and no, and people might say, who's watching this is, well, that's harsh language. No, I agree. I 100% agree because, I've told my colleagues and other people, go to any store, go to any tobacco store, vape shop, whatever, who sells some of this stuff, and ask them for an example, Delta 8, right? Going back to that, I know we kind of briefly mentioned that earlier, but I've told my colleagues and I've told many people and anybody who's listening and watching this, uh, do it. I double dog dare you to do it. Go to these places and ask them whether Delta 8 is natural and whether it's safe. And I can almost guarantee you 99% of the time, the people are going to say, yes, it's natural. Now, here's the truth behind this. Delta 8 is natural. It's a natural cannabinoid. However, and I think Brian would agree with me on this one. If you think about how tall and big a cannabis plant can be, 6 feet, 8 feet, right? Imagine whatever size you want. Delta 8 grows less than 0.1% in the entire plant. That is how prevalent it is. You cannot get a full bud of Delta 8. You cannot get a full bud of just that because of the prevalence rate of it. You have to molecularly change other cannabinoids to build and make Delta 8 products. And that's how they're doing this stuff, which is considered 99% of the time a synthetic.
Yeah. And they're very good at it. They've got this process down. I mean, this isn't Bob Marley's weed anymore, right? This isn't, it's just not, right? It's
Right.
just not. And that's what people have to know. They have to be educated on this, but we can't even have that conversation back to our first part because people just shut it down immediately. They're not open to it. And it reminds me of the, I go into the store sometimes and I look at the packaging and I just shake my head. I mean, you see it looks like Cheetos, right? And then there's a little tiny, in 8 font letters that says THC content, and I'm thinking, my goodness, if you're going to buy this stuff, buy it, whatever. I don't agree with it, but, buy it, but put it in a brown bag or you should look at the states that have legalized this stuff and just look at the poison control calls, the ER visits from young people. I see a bag of Cheetos, I'm probably going to open it up, right? And if I'm 4 or 5 years old, I don't know what THC is. I'm not looking at the bag. I think it's Cheetos. Why would you market a product to look like Cheetos or Skittles, or, all the different candies out there? Why? I mean, how do you sleep at night doing that? I just blows me away that someone thinks that's normal, that's good marketing. It's not. Let adults make the choice to buy that. And if they want to do that, by all means, whatever. But I mean, shame on us for thinking that that's a good way to market these products. You haven't been in one of these stores. I mean, I know you have, but I mean, someone listen, it'll blow you away. Some of the things they that they legally can sell.
No, no, and it's sad because then we run into where we're currently at, right? And why you're on this podcast, we run into this fentanyl, epidemic. We run into the THC epidemic. We run into all of this, and I'm gonna say it's an epidemic of substance use because it is, right?
Yeah.
And people always ask me, well, because I'm one of the loudest advocates that it's not a brain disease, right? It is it could be a disease of the family, a disease of society, a disease of spirituality, right? Uh, and the reason I am one of the loudest advocates in that area, we've taken for the last 15 years, academia and research has pushed this idea that substance use is a brain disease. Well, let me question this, right? When we look at the fact of the current epidemic in this country, has addiction gotten better or worse?
Worse, right?
Right. So if we're teaching that it's a brain disease and we're pushing this whole idea, how come it's gotten worse rather than better? And so let's take a step back and let's look at the root causes, right? And let's dig our heels in there. And it's not that it's a brain disease because I've had many people. I'll go to start talking about certain pieces of the chemistry here, and they'll tell me, Kev, I don't. And this is patients, right? Like these are patients who's living on the line here, not a researcher who's in academia or not a scientist. These are people who are like begging me in tears, Kev, I want to stay sober. I don't care how the chemistry is. Teach me how to stay sober, right? Help me get sober. And these are people who's in fentanyl withdrawals, who's in tears, people who are struggling with this THC stuff, with these synthetic drugs. I mean, are in tears. They don't care how the brain works. They want to know, how do I get sober? What is my problem and help me solve it? That's where the conversations go.
Yeah, and how much time and effort to spend on the debate on the brain, right? And I think it's important to understand what's going on in the brain, but yeah, ultimately, what does the person that's struggling want? They want to, like you said, they want to stay sober, and that's what we need to focus on is how do we get this person to to stay sober, to stay safe, to get through those withdrawals, and to go through recovery and live a life without the desire or the craving for these drugs. Yeah, it's a complex conversation sometimes.
Yeah, no, right. You're right. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with you on that one. Let,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, right? Because when we talk about the synthetics and the fentanyl and all of that, because fentanyl is it's a major problem.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are some of I guess, the biggest barriers to not the families? Because we've already spoke about that. We've already spoke about all of that stuff. What do you feel like is the biggest barriers with people, as far as like the people who are struggling with this, for them on getting off of this fentanyl, getting off of these synthetics? Because it's not just fentanyl; it's fentanyl with all the stuff, since because that's where the current drug supply is, right? So what have y'all seen in the last year or so, since y'all seen this shift? What are some of those barriers that stop people from successfully stopping use or reducing use and kind of like in those areas?
Well, I mean, I don't want. We talk about stigma a lot, so I mean, that's obviously out there. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who want to be sober, who want treatment, but who just the stigma is too great, whether it's in their family, whether it's in their community, whether it's just society in general. I think that's a big one. I think that's the biggest one, really. I mean, it's it really prevents so many folks from getting help. And then when they do seek help, the amount of resources out there, and unfortunately, in my opinion at least, is limited. I mean, they're great people like you that are helping people, but and thankfully there are a lot of organizations out there doing that. And but I remember when I first I mentioned my friend Mike. He works in recovery, and he was telling me that, there was one bed for male patients in a city, in the city, and there's, I don't know, there's 600,000 people that live there. I mean, I'm thinking this is crazy. This isn't Mayberry, right? It's a big area, and how do you have one bed? And it's unacceptable, right? And it goes, why don't we throw the money and the resources at that? And I'm not saying money is, you throw money and all of a sudden it's going to get better, but I mean, we're putting band-aids on this, really, and it goes, to me, it goes right back to my first answer. It's just stigma. I mean, it's just,
No.
unless we're willing to have a conversation about this and help people, um, we're always going to be spinning our wheels on this, and and it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, we can only do our piece, right? I mean, you go out there every day and you do what you do. I go out there every day and I do what I do, and hopefully we make a difference. And that's the piece of the earth that we carve into, and we try to fight the stigma. We try to make everything else better, but most of my effort is going to be on what impact can I have? What impact, um, can I play in someone's life?
Mm,
It's tough. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it's sad. Let me ask you, because y'all started only 2MG, and the goal was to focus on fentanyl education and training, right? When for those of you who don't understand why it's only 2MG, because it takes literally a fraction of a salt, of a little salt pebble, right?
Yeah.
Literally, it's that it's that serious. Where one piece of it of fentanyl that on that molecular level is fatal, right? It is fatal, so that's why they call it only 2MG. Um,
Yeah.
when y'all started this path, right, early on, fast forward to today. I mean, y'all been doing it for a hot minute now. Did you ever imagine that you would be where you're at now when you're going to these conferences, you're going to these trainings where, oh shoot, it's not just fentanyl. We need to throw in this educational everything else. Did you ever imagine that you would that y'all would be doing that?
No, I mean, I try not to, I don't want to start something that I'm going to do half-ass, or, if I'm going to go in, I'm going to go all in. Um, so I had a vision. I had, we did some strategic planning early on of, where we saw ourselves in 5, 10 years, things like that. But no, I mean, I my initial audience, this was a class I actually built for another organization. It was a 2-hour class on opioids. It was just a drug class. And we invited it was mainly first responders in the room, not just police officers, but, firefighters, paramedics, things like that. And it just, people were hungry for the information. And then I thought, wow, my resume will put people in the seats. They want to hear the stories and things like that, and what I have to say. And then it grew from there. And now, like, our main presentation's 4 hours long, and I mean, we've had people that were, I was voluntold to be here, but I'm so glad, because I learned so much, because we want to talk about the history. We want to talk about, and then I was able to incorporate, what is substance use disorder? I mean, just what is happening in the brain, right? Uh, why are people craving these drugs? What do opioids do? How do they work on your receptors, right? Just this little education, and then we just kept on adding more and more and more, and 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 like I said, in the 4-hour presentation, we really dive into everything. I mean, China, the Mexican cartels, how it's transported. I mean, we really dive into everything. So no, I never thought it would take off like that. I mean, like I said, I didn't do it to fail. I didn't do it to half-ass it. But I certainly didn't think that I'd be invited to conferences and schools and things like that. And now, I mean, it's just, and then I always question myself, how do I keep on going, right? And especially with the real barriers, like money. I can't afford to travel everywhere. Um, but I find ways, because I just, like I said earlier, it's just too damn important, right? I mean, when you have a child who hugs you and is in tears and wants to help, that's real, right? That's a connection, and that's someone who knows? Maybe they get help, and maybe maybe they become an honor student, go to some big school, and I don't know, go start a hospital and save lives. Whatever. My point is, this is a life that you're impacting in such a positive way, and that just gives me it gives me momentum. It gives me hope, and it drives me to want to do this more and more and more. And I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. I don't know what kind of impact we'll have, but I certainly hope it's positive.
I love it. One of the things, you talk about these trainings and stuff like that. I would like to encourage. Maybe you're already doing it, and maybe y'all are expanding in that area. Um, maybe, and I. It sounds like you are. I do a lot of state conferences for like NADAC is one of them. That's a national conference. I do uh, Addiction Professionals of North Carolina. That's the state conference here in North Carolina. Um, and I do on the therapy side, like not the medical piece of it, like not a medical CEUs, but you go to these state conferences or these national conferences, and people like myself, we get the CEUs, continuing education units. Would like to encourage you in your organization, if y'all haven't already, check out some of these other conferences where you can present, right? And because what'll happen is well, of course, you got to pay a certain part of, pay to get to be able to get it approved as a CEU, or to even present at a conference. Um, but you also get money because people will pay for the CEU itself. People pay to go to these conferences, so of course you'll get your money back. My encouragement is definitely, check out some of those state and national conferences, because man, I was supposed to go to, if it wasn't for my surgery in February, my goal was to go to Kansas City and Denver, Colorado. I think NADAC was in NADAC was in one, and then you have a big, huge one of the biggest mental health conferences that happened in the other city this year. But unfortunately, I had surgery, so that just left me with my two state conferences here in the spring and the fall. But I would love to, see y'all get into more in that area too, to offer the CEUs. That is a one thing of a financial revenue for you, or a stream of revenue for you, and you're also educating more people into, so definitely would encourage y'all to, maybe check some of that stuff out if you not already. Because I know we need more of that. Like early on in the fentanyl and opioid epidemic, there was a lot of trainings and resources, but it seems like, I'm not gonna say they're not there anymore, but it's kind of dwindled down itself, So I'd like to see more, and I love what y'all have to offer, and I think y'all would do well with, in that area of the field too. To get something approved through my board, I did a training on the CBD stuff, right? This THC CBD stuff, and I think it was like, I think I ended up paying like $25 for people to, take it, for it to be approved
Yeah.
for CEUs. It was like an hour and a half, presentation. So, but I did it free of charge, so people didn't have to pay, you know. But like you can $25 charge, or whatever to pay. I think NADAC costs. I think it's to be a approved educator. I think at some of these big organizations, it's like 800, $1,000, like per year. But you get to do, like, that's just to become an approved educator,
Mhm.
and then you get to do, of course, whatever type of trainings you want. I think that would be very, very beneficial if you can get to some of those medical associations, clinical therapy associations. National Association on Social Work is another big one for y'all to think about too. There's so many organizations out there that does these CEUs for people, and you can do virtual. You if it's a conference, I know some conferences are only virtual, and some of them are face to face. So that's going to be my encouragement, man, is for y'all to definitely check that out because I don't know if this year if we're still open to accepting trainings in the fall for our state conference in October. But after October, I think it's around November, around sometime in November, I think it is, maybe early December, they start opening up applications for the spring conference. Um, I think it's about 5 6 months. About that 4 to 6 month mark before they start opening up apps for people who want to present. Become presenters at the conferences.
I will absolutely look into that. We've done certification for a lot of law enforcement. In some states, they call it post. We have done some CEU. I always CEUs,
Yep.
yeah. And some of the organizations that we'll deal with, they'll get the appropriate information, so they'll submit it. But we definitely need to look into more of those. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to do more conferences. I was unable to go to the RX Summit in Nashville this year because I was at a human trafficking summit in San Diego, but I will be at CADCA in Orlando next month. It's the DEA/CADCA America Free Fentanyl Summit. It's the first one they've done or are doing. I'm not a speaker. I'm going to be down there to network. So if you or anyone listening is down there, please look for me and say hello. Love to connect. So yeah, we're not only are we hoping to speak at some of these conferences, and definitely looking to find some synergy with other like-minded folks, and see how we can increase our perspective and our mission and our common goals.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, and that's some. I would love to see you at one of our state conferences.
Yeah.
We have individuals who, and every time he shows up for a for training, I always go to his group because it's I love what he shares. He's an existentialist, and he's a licensed social worker and addiction therapist out of, I think it's Illinois or somewhere in the Midwest, northern Midwest. But every time he shows up and does his trainings, I always make sure I'm at at
Awesome.
his
Yeah.
group, just because like I'm an existentialist myself, so that gives me
Yeah.
that education on whatever he's presenting on. So um, definitely would love to see you at our state conference. If it's not the fall, for sure the spring conference, because we need it. We need it badly on what y'all have to offer.
It's always nice to have fresh speakers too, right?
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I'll look into it for sure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I think y'all would do very well with our here in North Carolina, because we have one of the I think North Carolina is rated the absolute worst in healthcare and behavioral health services. And so, man, look, we could use your help. We can use all the help we can. Yep,
Yeah. Yeah, we should all be in this fight together. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know. Listen, I can keep going down the conversation in the rabbit hole with you, man. This is not your last time coming on, folks. He is a phenomenal guest. I love this guy. He's a phenomenal young man. I love the work that he does. Unfortunately, I have things I have to do today, and so does
yeah.
Mr. Brian.
I'm at a conference right now, actually. So
Wow. Where at?
I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm in a hotel room, but I'm at the National Sheriff's Association annual conference.
Wow.
So I need to run over there here in a minute.
Gotcha.
But Yeah, I travel a lot, and not only with the drugs, but other stuff as well. So yeah, but,
I love it.
but
I love it.
thank you for what you do as well. It's so important. It really is. And we need more of that. We need more good.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Well, just to start wrapping this up, if people want to get you to come in as a conference guest speaker, maybe present to them, maybe even do some mentoring with you, or even come on and volunteer, or or anything of that sort, how can they contact you?
Yeah, our website is only2mg.com. So www.only, and then just the number two, not it's not spelled out, and then mg. Mg stands for milligrams, but mg, and then .com. And then it's only a one pager right now. I got a great volunteer who's willing to do some more work, but that's a whole other. We got to expand our website one day. I just been had so much on my plate, but it's one page and just basically explains kind of what we do and our contact information. And if I'm not at a conference or on a podcast or speaking, I'm pretty accessible. I don't like people to wait, so I can get back to you pretty quick and make it work. Let's have the conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what is most important question here?
Mhm.
What is one thing, well, next to most important question, what is one thing you hope people can take away from this episode?
Well, we said it a couple times, so let's just end with it. Stigma. Um, have a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy. Doesn't mean you have to agree with behavioral choices, or doesn't mean that you see eye to eye on every single step of the process. But just try to listen with intent to understand. You don't have to agree, but just try to understand. And when you do that, when you open your mind and you open your heart, you'd be amazed on how much more effective you can be at communicating with people, and even people who may ultimately disagree with your goals or your opinions, or but yeah, let's just reduce that stigma and take care of people, and think about all the the mental health issues and other things out there people are struggling with. Um, it's 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 just the right thing to do, and you know extend a hand and help people.
Absolutely. Man, it sounds like a beautiful call to action. I'd never even asked you to call to action. No, I love it. I love it. I mean, listen, you answered both of them right there, because it's, because typically, we always ask, the questions and about those that form right there. And I love the way you wrapped it up. I couldn't have, you know, wrapped it up any better than that. Extend the hand, compassion, empathy. Listen with intent to understand. I love that. I love that. Man, I appreciate. Wow, this has been so phenomenal. And I truly have to say, a definite extension from the first time you were on here, and I appreciate it. I thank you for your work. Thank you again for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, and appreciate you as well, and look forward to continuing our conversations.
Absolutely. Well, folks, listen, if you were triggered at all by watching this, please utilize your resources. You have 911, 988 if you live in the Western Hemisphere. You also have local law enforcement, local hospital unit, hospital emergency departments, local crisis centers too, depending on which state and country you live in. You also, if you live in the U.S., the DEA and FBI might sound like they're bad folks. They're not all bad folks, okay? But if you really need help, you can reach out to somebody. You can even reach out to the organization itself if you are struggling and need help. So please utilize your resources. We're here to help educate. We're not here to give medical or clinical advice. So if you are triggered, apologies. Sometimes that happens because of how our content on our show. So that being said, Mr. Brian, thank you again. And don't go anywhere yet. Okay, I'm gonna end the live.
Thank you.